On Thursday, Donald Trump became the first US president to be arrested in Atlanta. The charges relate to conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in the state of Georgia. To many at the time, it was surprising that Trump did not win this state. A majority of voters in Georgia have historically always preferred the Republican candidate, with Democrats last winning the state in 1992 under Bill Clinton. Despite the growing Hispanic population in this part of the South, the majority of which tend to vote Democrat, the state should have been a reasonably comfortable win for President Trump. When votes were being counted in the 2020 election, the on-day votes, i.e. the in-person votes on the day, were counted first. In many states, including Georgia, Trump had built up such a huge lead that it appeared he could not lose. From being underdogs for months before the election, during election night, bookmakers actually slashed his odds and made him favourite to win. It appeared there was no way back for Joe Biden. At this stage of election night, this was when the suspicious activities began. In Fulton County in Georgia, the media reported that a water pipe had burst on the voting site and counting needed to be halted.
Grossman, he is in Georgia, where they're having a big problem counting some of the votes. Mark?
Nora, this is an election return watch party here on the edge of Atlanta. These are mostly excited Democrats because when's the last time Georgia thought of itself as a battleground state? After record early returns and essentially a day of problem-free voting, there is now a hitch in the tabulation of votes. I'm standing in Fulton County. Fulton County includes a chunk of Atlanta. Downtown Atlanta is State Farm Arena, where the Atlanta Hawks play. They are tabulating the absentee ballots of Fulton County, Georgia's most populous county. A water pipe has broken inside the arena. They had counted 86,000 absentee ballots. We don't know how many more they have yet to tabulate, but all the tabulation of those ballots has now stopped. We're told by election officials they may not finish tabulating those votes for a day or two. So depending how close the rest of the state is, we may not know the result of this critical battleground state for another day or two. That is because, again, a water pipe has broken in State Farm Arena. State Farm Arena is where they were counting the absentee ballots of Georgia's most populous county, and now that tabulation has stopped. Big development here.
Fulton County is a Democrat stronghold in the state of Georgia. It also had the state's highest number of voters, with over 500,000 people casting their vote in the 2020 election. In the past, the county has had a history of poor electoral voting standards. From a Republican point of view, it would seem odd that this happens to be the only place in Georgia on election night that had maintenance issues, which would delay vote counting. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has previously commented that, and I quote, "Fulton County has a long-standing history of electoral mismanagement that has understandably weakened voters' faith in the system." End quote. There was also this footage, which shows a few vote counters appearing to take out containers holding votes, after all the election observers were asked to leave the room due to the burst pipe. Georgia state officials and many in the press at the time debunked these claims that this showed electoral fraud, and instead was part and parcel of election counting. As an outsider, I would ask, why did these individuals feel the need to do this? As in, take the cases out, the suitcases, the containers, whatever you want to call them. After all others in the room were asked to leave. It does appear somewhat suspicious. The burst pipe and the footage showing these containers taken out were not the only suspicious activities. In response to the COVID pandemic, the postal vote or mail-in ballot system was used on a scale never seen in any election before. Unlike previous elections, did not have to request a postal vote, and instead automatically sent these to their homes. No one can deny that the likelihood of fraud occurring from postal votes, compared to on-day voting, is huge. Although many Democrat politicians deny this, as they know this type of fraud helps them win more elections. It is similar to what the Labour Party does in the United Kingdom. With all this in mind, I am under no illusion that a significant amount of fraud did take place at the 2020 election, solely because postal voting can be abused so much by people, if desired, and this voting method was used on such a huge scale. A majority of Joe Biden's votes came from postal votes, whereas Trump's votes predominantly came from in-person voting, which is much less open to fraud. Whether or not fraud did or did not occur at the 2020 election, and Trump's claims about this, should not be reason enough to arrest and charge him over this. The question is, did Donald Trump have a right to question an election outcome with such visible suspicious activities ongoing? Trump is a character who obviously divides opinion. Many love him, but many despise him too. And this includes many in the establishment, including some in the Republican Party. This, and the fear of him running in 2024, is why they are doing all of this to him now. Had Trump retired and not opted to run in 2024, he'd gone off, played golf, just lived his life, I'm convinced that none of these charges would have been brought against him. Is there really any comparison between this and what George Bush's government did in the Middle East, in Iraq and elsewhere, or what Barack Obama's government continued with their mass bombing campaign? Yet no charges were brought against these men. That is why, in my view, Donald Trump did nothing wrong, and these charges being brought against him are a joke. The mugshot of him being arrested, as you can see here, was actually the first upload Trump has made on Twitter, or X, as it is now known, since January 2021. The social media platform is now likely to be a much livelier place, with the former president back on the scene. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Many thanks. Bye.